The globalists have been systematically engaging in a massive brainwashing campaign, telling the public that torture is a good idea. And now we've seen the aftermath of torture. The Joseph Mengele-style abuses include killing detainees and harvesting their organs. But they don't just torture people to death. They do things so horrible we can't even mention them here. And there's no mystery when it comes to finding out who ordered all of this ultra-brutal torture at Camp X-Ray at Guantanamo Bay and Gitmo and 32 other camps in Iraq. Alberto Gonzales and Chertoff and the rest of Bush's crew openly wrote memos detailing how torturing people unto death is an okay thing to do. It's part of the public record. The White House and Pentagon ordered the torture, but when they got caught, they just burned a few of their underlings. The Pentagon's own reports admit that 90% of those that were picked up at checkpoints in Iraq were totally innocent. But that didn't stop them from being tortured. In fact, the Army's own report admits that military dogs were used to bite and frighten detainees, that women were brutally raped, that detainees were beaten to death and sodomized with large objects dripping with battery acid. People's children were also raped in front of them to attain answers. This is the same type of mentality we see from serial killers, and it's riddled with all sorts of perverted sexual abuse. Is this what the land of the free and the home of the brave has become? After 13 years of sanctions, over 1.5 million Iraqis died, 700,000 of them children. And now thousands of private contractors have taken over the torture where the Pentagon left off, following in the footsteps of other famous control freak serial killers and torturers. The only reason the elite is selling us on torture is because they want to condition us to where we will accept its use against us. And it's been going on for decades in America, in the prisons, and against pro-life demonstrators, environmental activists, and anyone else that doesn't totally submit to their tyranny. The footage you're seeing is from the late 1980s and early 1990s, where the police openly pulled out nunchucks, started wrapping it around the arms of peaceful pro-life demonstrators and brutally breaking them, simply because they refused to get off the side of the sidewalk. The police thought it was their right to break people's arms because they didn't follow their orders.
They used nunchucks on the rescuers. This is an illegal martial arts weapon, and merely possessing one in California is a felony. To be attacked with one is assault with a deadly weapon. Never before in the history of America have nunchucks been used on non-violent protesters. This is the gruesome sight of what happened. The police, in unprovoked cruelty, wrapped the nunchucks around Michael Hausman's arm and broke it. When lawyers went to federal Judge Tashima to request he order the police to cease using them, he denied the request, saying in so many words that pro-lifers could not prove they were in any danger.
I can't tell you what it's like to be lying on the ground with police officers on a top of you, using all sorts of torture holds to make you walk. You can't walk even if you wanted to walk. And their sole intent is to torture you. And then listening to the screams of the people.
When you bring out riot sticks, it's usually because you expect to see some serious opposition, so you put on helmets and you put on face masks and you carry shields. These policemen were bareheaded.
But here it was calculated torture, and the policemen were enjoying the pain. They laughed at the people screaming, and all of us screaming, all grown men, mature men. And you couldn't help but scream. What happened was when the two nightsticks squeezed on the wrists, they cut off the nerve ends and the flow of blood, and your hands swelled up to almost twice the size, and they turned black.
It didn't matter whether you were a woman, a man, an old person, it didn't matter what your age, sex, or anything, that they were just there. They were going to brutalize everybody. And I think probably to the women more particularly, that they were very angry that they couldn't get a young woman like myself to walk. And I could tell that it was a pride issue.
This is an important illustration because it shows us how long this tyranny has been going on in this country. And if they can get away with it with one group, they can get away with it against everybody. The fact of the matter is, the establishment and its enforcers have been setting the precedent for a long time to torture women in plain view of the public, to use illegal nunchucks and break people's arms. And now in Iraq, they have these big live TV shows with all the people confessing after they've been openly tortured. And in 2005, people they take into hospitals who refuse drug tests are restrained and then tasered repeatedly until they go ahead and urinate in a cup. And there are hundreds and hundreds of examples we don't even have time to cover here. The point is, this is all macabre and terrifying, and the New World Order is conditioning us to accept it. We must resist it. The United Nations was founded right here in the United States in 1945 at the end of World War II. It was set up at the Presidio in San Francisco by our military-industrial complex. The Rockefellers put up the money to build Rockefeller Center and to also give them the land for the United Nations. So this whole area is New World Order funded and controlled. And basically, it's a debating club to make the third world think that they have authority and to think that they're part of the power process. But really, the G8 or the G8 nations control the United Nations through the Security Council. We hear the reports all the time. They're in the news where some UN bureaucrat runs over somebody when they're drunk driving in New York or Washington, D.C., and nothing can happen to them. But it gets a lot worse than that. The United Nations has been caught hundreds of times running giant sex rings with kidnapped women and children out of Europe, Asia, Africa, the Middle East. It's a huge business. And right here in New York, they routinely catch these UN officials and even low-level bureaucrats with their own house slaves. Many times it'll be some UN delegate from Asia, and he's got some kidnapped little girl from Russia. So these are the people in here telling you that world government's good and that they need to run your life. And you look at the UN's Charter and Declaration of Human Rights, it says you don't have any rights. It says the UN is the absolute arbiter and authority. And now we see our own government adopting the UN model of governance. The United Nations believes that private property should be in their hands, controlled by them. And when it comes to self-defense, back in 2000 at a UN meeting held here, their organization UNIDIR called for all civilian firearms to be confiscated. In fact, they stated that civilian ownership of firearms threatens the legitimate power monopoly of the state. Now, what's a power monopoly of the state? That's a dictatorship or martial law. And they strive to have governments have the monopoly of power over the people. Remember who was for gun control? Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Fidel Castro. In every case, if a government tries to disarm you, it's tyrannical. Black Americans couldn't own a gun. Native Americans had their firearms confiscated. Roman slaves 2,000 years ago couldn't own a sword or even a knife. Being disarmed is one of the key hallmarks of a society that's enslaved to its government. Sorry. A pile of fake signs meant to look like they were individually made. Getting slick here. Republicans do that too. See, this is a UN operation. This is a UN operation, so look how it's all meant to look like it's individuals. Imagine what would happen if these tens of thousands of people were truly informed about the nature of the geopolitical system. Imagine if they saw the big picture and understood that the UN is controlled by the same people that run George W. Bush. But they're all here beneath the United Nations, calling for it to be the global authority, and that somehow all of the ills in our government are caused by national sovereignty. When that's not the case, my friends. The people destroying America are the very people that created the United Nations. It is nothing more than a rubber stamp, a front group of the military-industrial complex of the New World Order. Year after year, the peace activists come out in an ineffective move criticizing Republicans, but it's impossible for them to ever criticize Democrats, who are, as the cliche goes, two sides of the same coin. Democrats and liberals, progressives, socialists, communists, whatever you want to call them, can see the corruption of the Republican Party, which is there for anybody to see. It's horrible. But they can't see the corruption of the United Nations that had thousands and thousands of Indians murdered in Burma just a few years ago to make room for United Nations UNESCO land sanctuary. These guys can see the corruption of the big oil companies, but they don't want to see the document showing that the big oil companies put up the money to found the United Nations so they could control this growing world government body way back in the mid-1940s. You know, we've got the documents where Dr. Henry Kissinger back in 1973 told the most populated 5 third world nations that they had to sterilize forcibly half their women or they wouldn't get IMF and World Bank funding. And the United Nations certified that plan with the IMF and World Bank and helped carry that out. The UN's been caught being involved in sterilization programs in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa. And in the last 6 years, 2 separate cases in Asia and Africa, the UN has been caught in massive vaccine programs, tainting them with a very expensive synthetic hormone. They bind it to the tetanus pathogen, give it to women. It's a program only for women because it wouldn't hurt men, and it then permanently sterilizes the women. Now, how is that loving and good? Well, you see, the United Nations thinks that population control is a good thing, both physically with the police state, but also stopping people's reproductive rights, sterilizing them. The UN has put out dozens of public documents where they're calling for an 80% world population reduction. In fact, at the Beijing Women's Conference, the World Conference, back in 1997, the head of the UN Food Program said, "We will use food as a weapon against the people, and we do not apologize about it." And they also gave China awards for their horribly vicious one-child policy. And now you've got 35 million more men in China than you have women. It's causing a societal breakdown. Even the communist Chinese are backing off that policy, and the UN has been urging them not to. Most of these people here are well-meaning good folks, just like most of the idiots at the Republican National Convention are. They can't see evil. They can't name evil. They can't face up to what it is. The facts are a bunch of Malthusian, social Darwinist, same people that funded the Nazis, set up the UN to con good liberal-minded people into being part of this system. That's all this is something to co-opt the population and to enslave the population and to misdirect people into thinking that they have a real escape from the fascism of the Republican Party and other right-wing command and control dictatorships around the planet. Well, President George W. Bush has won the election, and the elites got their man back in place. President Bush, of course, has been great for the elite because he's neutralized so many millions of conservatives who believe that he actually follows conservative policies, whereas in truth he's for open borders, gun control, signing on to UNESCO and the United Nations, the growth in government in his first term, double the growth rate under Bill Clinton. But because he is a supposed conservative, he is a key Trojan horse for the elite to actually bring down our national sovereignty and set up a domestic police state unit, just like we saw in Nazi Germany or communist Russia. And make no mistake, that's exactly what Homeland Security and the new domestic CIA director are doing, is turning America into a martial law nightmare. Bush all along has been a polarizing figure, keeping people in the left or the right paradigm. So is Kerry. He's been very polarizing. That's how the elite wants you. Divide and conquer. Balkanization. That's what it's all about. So now they've put their Trojan horse, their fake conservative, their neocon, back in office under very questionable circumstances. But either way, they always control the outcome of the election because both the candidates are from the same social clique, the same organizations, and they're related.
It was the same clique, the Kerry and the Bush. Okay, what is the option? The people, what do they have to choose?
The presidential elections have turned into diversions. The real power is at the county, city, and state level. And that's where we can all, as little people, have an effect and get involved and really change policies. So that's where I suggest people get involved. You know, I authored a resolution over 2 years ago to repeal the Patriot Act, and thousands of other people picked up on it. And my personal resolution has been passed in dozens and dozens and dozens of cities. Parts of my resolution were incorporated into other resolutions and have been passed in over 400 cities and 4 states. That's just so far. I'm sure you've heard about the movement to repeal the Patriot Act at the city and county level.
Yes, I did.
Well, I just came up with the idea for that over 2 years ago, put it out on my website, Infowars.com. The people like you took action where the power is really at, and we effected change in a mighty way. Instead of being diverted by this smoke and mirrors theater, that's all this is theater with the Bush-Kerry ticket.
Okay, the question is how you can make the small people because they believe one way or another way.
We're trying to break that paradigm, that false left-right paradigm. During the protest, we met some great New Yorkers who invited us out for a tour of the city by water in their speedboat. So to add some balance, I thought I'd end the film on a happier note.
Ground zero, directly ahead of us, folks. Right there. 150-yard quarantine. We cannot get within 150 yards.
The hollowed out copper shell. Tear down the Statue of Liberty on Sunday.
Yeah, documented.
Something's still beautiful about it, but
No, it's beautiful.
There's some interesting theories about what its real meaning actually is.
Oh, it's a woman in drag. It's Illuminati. It's a man in drag.
Illuminati, right?
It's a man in drag.
Freemasons built
Illuminati.
I love those shoes.
Her boobs are all worshiping.
It's a man. Every woman's are.
Oh, they are. No, it's a perspective. It's the angle you're looking at.
Why is it Illuminati symbol? What gives it away?
Well, apparently,
Well, no. Admittedly, the French architect was an Illuminati guy.
An accident. Well, I have a couple books on it, and
sure. I would take it off now. The cop's coming over to us now to check us out.
Well, number one, it's male and female. It's androgynous. It's like in Mel Gibson's The Passion. The devil's male and female. So it's androgynous.
Yeah, here comes the cops. Keep it rolling. Okay. I don't think they're going to come over to us. What, pansexual? He's got a 50 cal on the front, 50 cal on the back.
Let me get this.
But it may be
He's going to park between us and the statue.
And he also showed you like the different. They had different ideas before they came up with the process, and I forget exactly why they decided upon this.
You know, Alex, you're right. I never thought about that. Look at her arm. That looks like a man's arm.
No, it is. It's admitted.
The hand is huge. Is that an Adam's apple? A man hand.
What's their name? The one with the long legs and the long blonde hair. They all say.
I'll have you like coach. Did I call it, guys? How's it going, guys? Hey, how you doing? Good evening, sir. Just checking out the beautiful sights tonight. Like every night, yeah. How's it going, man? I'm sorry? Where you guys at? Newport Yacht Club. Yep. We got enough preservatives for everyone here, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I got 10 in storage up in the front. I got 12 up there. Yeah, we're here. We're pretty much here every night. How's it going, guys? Right. It's pretty quiet out here, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Not a lot of action on this. Yeah.
That's.
Well, if we see anything, we'll give you a holler.
Yeah.
Don't you recognize us by now?
No. Stop it, Buchanan.
Oh, yes, you can. Come on. When the book.
She's a beauty. You guys got the life hanging out next to the statue. Come on.
That's not too bad.
What's better than that, man?
You guys have a good night.
Take care.
Thank you too, man. You, man. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Safe.
No, that's their line.
It's all of our line.
I see. I don't believe this.
Later. She's been inside old beds.
My impulse is go over there and talk.
Downstairs?
That's my dialogue.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. But they were cool, actually. Yeah.
Well, they're nice guys.
They were nice. But at least we know if there was going to be an al-Qaeda attack on the statue, as you said, most likely. These guys? You did that.
I know.
50 mils out.
Makes me so nervous. I'm being surfaced.
Oh, see, now that's the reaction. They're counting on. They're guarding the statue tonight, man.
Yeah. Is that the Watchtower Track Society?
Yes, it is, yeah. They like to buy buildings next to bridges.
There's the Watchtower.
They feel that buying bridges,
That's the Jehovah's Witnesses.
They feel that buying real estate next to large public works like bridges and stuff gives them energy. It's true.
Really?
That's what they think, yeah. That's why they own the real estate next to the Brooklyn and the Manhattan Bridge. They love buying real estate next to bridges. Don't ask me why. Gabriel, look at the water, man. Look at the water on your lap. And it's all printing presses. You got to see what's going on in there. That is a factory of printing right there. This is the Brooklyn Bridge here. I don't think you heard. Are you live? 1886, this one finished. Washington, the British amassed at Staten Island, 2,000 ships. Washington boogied right there. Came up through Brooklyn Heights and he had to make a quick boogie out. Because they would have killed him. Here then? No.
God, look at the purple on the water.
There would have been nothing.
Absolutely gorgeous.
How deep is this? Harry, how deep is this?
We're at 40, we're 51 feet. The last guy I saw get killed, he was on this pier, and what happened was the cops went up to get him, and what I saw with my own eyes was the cop lunged to grab the guy, and he went backwards, and so it was reported as a suicide. And when he fell, he hit the high tension wire.
Oh my God!
Human going down. Just a nice time. How are you doing tonight?
How you doing? What are you doing?
We're traveling around having a fun time, enjoying the convention. How are you guys doing?
Okay, good.
Yep.
You guys drinking?
Beautiful. Sorry?
Yeah, lights.
Okay. And we were just sitting out here.
All right, try to put it on, please. Where are you headed now?
We're going to go back to Newport Yacht Club. That's where I'm stationed.
Okay, you gonna go back there now?
Probably about 15 minutes.
Okay, just leave your lights on, all right?
Thank you, sir.
Okay, good night.
Have a good night. Good night to be out, isn't it? Calm. It's calm.
Nice.
God bless America.
Nice night, guys.
See you later.
Again, I'm going to crack you.
I didn't even think about this.
That's what I went to.
God bless America. These guys don't like it.
All in all, we had a great time in New York, despite the police state.